Hey folks, this is Picohan from the North American server, and this is the Myogi. Much like the Congo, the Myogi is a ship I've recently come to like a lot, but since I feel that the majority of the player base doesn't feel this way, I wanted to make this video. Now, the biggest problem with the Myogi is that she's not a very beginner-friendly ship. And that's a problem when she's at Tier 4. The biggest contributing factor, of course, is that she only has 6 guns. That's 3 turrets with 2 barrels each. And these aren't really the most accurate guns either. However, much like the speed of the Colorado, the small number of guns is by far the Myogi's biggest weakness. So let's have a look at some of her stats. The HP pool at 46,000 is pretty much on par for the tier, but the TDS at 36 is pretty good. For the small number of guns, what you do get are guns of the largest caliber at this tier, and you also get the longest firing range. If you look at the details, she also has a very quick 180-degree turn time, and you can get it down to 33 with Expert Marksman. These secondaries are so-so, they don't have much range, and they mainly shoot AP, but at least you have something. It's much the same story with the AA, at least you have something in a tier where AA can be non-existent. Her maneuverability, this is her other strong point. She has a maximum speed of 28, you can get it up to 29 with flags, and this is by far the fastest battleship speed at Tier 4. It's probably 4 or 5 knots faster than the next best thing. The concealment is a little bit of an issue. She does have very large detectability, but with a 10-point captain, which is not that hard to get now, you can get it down to 14.2 with Concealment Expert. Just a quick look at the modules and setup here. When you're researching stuff, I think you want to do the hulls first, then the propulsion, and then the fire control. The extra range here is really not that useful. There's not much you can do here in the upgrades. Damage control 1 is probably standard. I use the magazine mod 1 here because I hate detonations and I don't run the anti-detonation flag here. Captain skills, this is pretty standard stuff. You do preventive maintenance, you do expert marksman, you do superintendent, and you do concealment. So, what do you do with the Myogi? Well, much like any other ship, you really have to play to her strengths. In this case, it's the large gun caliber, the long range, and the fast speed. As a whole, the Myogi's biggest strength is probably her flexibility. However, in order to utilize that, you really need to know how to choose the targets. And I think that can be very difficult if the Myogi is your first Tier 4 ship. That being said, general smart play can get you a lot of the way there. So let's look at some gameplay. So the first game here, we are bottom tier on Big Race, but this actually illustrates a good thing that the Myogi has going for it, and that's the preferred matchmaking at Tier 4. It just means that you won't see higher than Tier 5 and you won't get raffle stomped by the tier 6s. Since this is a standard battle, you don't have to be too aggressive at the start. Originally I had wanted to just stay near the cap and try to take some pot shots using my range. I originally wanted to do that behind the F7 island, but I couldn't get there in time, and so I'm going around. In the process, you can see I'm doing a bad thing here. I'm showing my broadside to the enemy, and even though we're not even that close, I lost a quarter of my health doing that turn. However, once you are angled, you can tank plenty of damage, especially down here at tier 4. So, like I said, just trying to take some pot shots at the enemy while they are giving me broadside. And even though, if you look on the minimap, these guys are not even close to being at the max range of the ship, and the dispersion is already not very good. Taking these sort of pot shots is okay, but this is really not your bread and butter. You are not that effective at these ranges, and that's why I said the range upgrade is really just not that useful. So since the enemy team is largely coming to the east, and I am still getting focused fairly heavily, I start moving away again. At this point I've taken a little bit more damage than I would have liked, but that's why you have the heal. It's a little bit unfortunate that I also have a fire, but you should not repair single fires unless you're confident that they can't be relit. Here you also see me turning back up to help my team. I did wait until I felt that enough battleships were behind islands before making this turn. So my plan is to use the island at E8 and 9 to block the majority of the enemy team so we can try to work on one or two guys. This is where the speed of the Myogi really comes in handy. You really want to be using that to try to get into positions that are advantageous for you. I'm actually going to turn the ship around here again while there aren't too many people able to shoot me, such that I can angle and be in a position to run away if these guys start coming towards us. Also, one unique trait of the Myogi is that the guns are oriented, kind of like a Japanese destroyer, with two guns in the back, so it's harder to push in than to kite. Since the enemy doesn't really seem to want to push down the flank yet, I slow down here and wait. You'll see I tried to target the Omahas post battleships here. As usual, if you're a battleship, you should shoot at destroyers and cruisers first, because you can delete them. So here we are a little bit later, and both of the Kaisers are finally coming around. Since they're both angled fairly well, I'm going to take this opportunity to turn the ship around and get the guns on the other side so I can go back towards the west. You'll notice I move quickly to make the turn, but as soon as I've completed it, I'm going to slow down and try to close the distance again. Since the Kaisers are still angled, I take a shot at the broadsiding Wyoming, but even though the range has closed to 11, the dispersion is still not that good. Right now, as these Kaisers are pushing down, I want to try to move further toward the west so I can get a better angle on them while still making sure that I am covered from the Congo and the Wyoming in the north. At some point, what I want is for the Kaisers to have to angle against either myself or the rest of my team. It's at these ranges that you can really start making your guns felt. You'll see in 9 minutes I've only done 17,000, and right there I just added another 7. Since my angle is good, again I'm slowing down, and I'm just going to shoot at these broadsides. Do realize that at this point, the enemy is actually slightly ahead in points, and they could have retreated and made us push into them. But since they pushed us, and now that Kaiser is dead, they have to keep pushing us if they want to win. A bit later, and I've taken out the other Kaiser, and I'm going to take a 10 km shot against the Wyoming, and you can see that even at 10 kilometers, if the dispersion is good, you can do a lot of damage. I've pretty much now doubled my damage from the first 8 minutes in the next 2 minutes by getting a little bit closer. Now this New York is pushing our west flank, and since this game isn't quite won yet, me and my division mate decided we should take out the New York to prevent him from taking out our carrier. Once again, even against a tier 5 battleship, if you angle, you can mitigate damage fairly well. Myself and QQ, we aren't going to take too much damage, but the New York, who is doing exactly what he shouldn't do, is just going to get deleted right about here. And with the New York out of the picture, we pretty much have this game in the bag. You can see again that under 10 kilometers, you can really start to dish out the damage against even higher tier battleships. Especially in this many on one situation, you really want to try to close the distance to get as much damage as possible. In a brawling situation, the Myogi is actually not bad, given that she has large caliber guns and a fairly quick turret traverse rate. Just a final clip from the end of this game. After taking out the Congo, myself and QQ and the Kaiser both went to the northwest in order to try to finish off this Vogue. And thanks to the speed of the Myogi, I was able to get into position such that I could put multiple salvos on the carrier, whereas QQ and the Kaiser, with a much slower speed, couldn't even shoot at the guy yet. And so this is just one case where the speed of the Myogi bested the tankiness of the Kaiser, which is generally considered a significantly better ship. Second game here, it's the same map, same battle mode. We don't have to be too aggressive at the beginning, so I've used the speed of the ship to put myself in a position where my broadside is protected by an island, but I can still shoot at the Reds. Here you can see I'm shooting at the St. Louis. The St. Louis is actually a pretty good target for the Myogi because you are less likely to overpen it than on some of the less armored cruisers. you'll see my next target here is the Wyoming, and the Wyoming's at 12.3, which is not that far away, but since the Myogi's dispersion is not that good, I think all of these are misses. Again, range is not your bread and butter, you're just trying to get pot shots. So on the next shot, I actually switched to the Freon. It's a little bit of a harder shot because of the speed of the ship, the size of the ship, but since you can delete cruisers if you hit the Citadel, I think it's worth the risk. Those 3 overpens are actually pretty good, all things considered. The other thing to note is that these Tier 3 cruisers have so little health that one Citadel can be a large part of their total health pool. You'll see this Kolberg gets deleted with 1 Citadel and 1 overpen, and that's all you need. So my next target here is the Wyoming. Like I said in the previous fight, once enemies start getting within the, say, 10-kilometer range, your shots start landing a lot more reliably. That was a pretty good salvo on that guy. You can see I've actually backed up some to try to close the distance here. And we're going to try to finish this guy off with the next salvo. So with the Wyoming pretty much gone, you'll see that most of the people that I can shoot at are pretty far away now. If it wasn't a standard battle, I would probably be trying to reposition the ship at this point. But since it is standard battle, and we're ahead by 2 ships and in points, I feel that I can sit here and hold this position for a little bit longer. I probably stayed in that position a little bit too long. You can see that a couple minutes down the line I've done very little additional damage, and the enemy team has caught up a bit, both in ships and in points. So I'm repositioning the ship for real now. One of the things you should always consider is to use your gun cooldown as much as you can, even if you're maneuvering and you can only shoot 1 or 2 barrels, because sometimes, especially against cruisers, you can get a lucky shot, which this Duguay is going to be the unfortunate victim of. Right there. Just a bit later, we have transitioned from the back line to the front line, which is something a Wyoming or Kaiser probably couldn't do. Now you're going to see me do some careless things because I'm sitting at 4 kills and I want that Kraken. Originally I was going to go after the G101 since I could one-shot him, probably with just 1 or 2 shells, but since he drops off, I'm going for the Freon, which is the next thing I can probably one-shot. Since he wasn't too far away, the shots flew true, and that's how you get a Kraken in the Myogi. Unfortunately, I only made a half-assed attempt to dodge the G101's corpse, and he lands a large salvo. However, you can see the TDS at work here. Even though he landed all 4 of his torps, it only took half my health. Now the game is pretty much won, so I'm just going to push into these 2 remaining battleships and try to farm as much damage as I can. This is something that the Myogi is not that good at doing because of the gun configuration, 2 guns in the back. You have to show some broadside to bring the rear turrets in action. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. The problem is, as I close the distance, the opposing battleships will be able to pen my armor at sharper and sharper angles. You can see that Myogi did a huge number right there, and I was angled fairly aggressively already. Again, this is kind of a sloppy engagement. We're going to get the kill here on the Myogi because he's giving us such a beautiful broadside. But I think the Koenig Albert is going to take us out eventually. You can see here when his shells bounce or do damage depending on how much I'm angled, but since my health is so low, it doesn't really matter that much. But hopefully this video can give some insight into how I think the ship should be played, and why I think it's a pretty strong ship at this tier. In fact, I would argue that the Myogi is stronger at tier 4 than the Congo is at tier 5, if only because of the preferred matchmaking. So that's pretty much it for this Myogi exhibition. Have a nice day.